it and see how this looks. This looks pretty good. How's that lighting? I think we turned this light out last time above me.
Yeah. And someone said you looked like some movie thing.
Is that better? Can you see it?
No.
How about this? The helicopter effect might not be too good.
What about that? Does that change it?
No, it looks okay. This might not, behind me might not be. We might not want that. Yeah, it's too late. Okay, that looks good.
Yeah, that actually looks pretty decent there.
I think that looks decent.
You got a spotlight in your face like the last time.
All right. We are live. Good evening. I'd like to welcome you all to Baker's Green Acres, and this will be our 89th installment of the Anyone Can Farm live chat, where we seek to answer questions and have conversation about anything having to do with homesteading, farming, or just life in general. I'm going to have to remember that. That sounds good. Okay, I see we got a bunch of people, so we're going to get rolling. Little commentary here at the beginning. This weekend was our homestead hog harvest here at Baker's Green Acres. And for those new folks coming in, what that is when we host people to the farm as students, and they get here on Friday. We start about 1 o'clock with our first kill, and we start with live pigs, and we actually harvest them. We figure about 1 pig per 6 participants. We had 9 people, and so it worked out really well because one of the halves, when we kill a pig, we cut it in half right down the middle. And one of the halves we use as a demonstration half, and that's the one that I cut, and then the students go back to their station, and then they make the cut. Anyway, it's a pretty rigorous weekend. These were big pigs. They were 400, and the next one was a little heavier. So it was quite a bit of work. New people have never done it before. It's kind of a daunting task. The first one, me and my staff pretty much headed up. The second one, we step back and say, here you go. And I think we were done by 7 o'clock Friday night, and then we had a little bit something to eat, and then everybody went off to get some rest. And they were back here at 9 o'clock Saturday morning, and we went until 7 o'clock or 7:30 on Saturday evening.
We were eating for part of it.
Yeah, we were eating, and a lot of it's just instruction, and people will want to stop and they want to talk about something, and there's a lot of things along the way. If it's just me working, I don't stop to instruct anybody, so I'm just plugging along with it. I can go a little bit quicker than that. But the idea here is to instruct these folks in this particular discipline. And this one was a little different for me. So this would have been the 9th year that we've done homestead hog harvest. The first one was called something completely different. It was called pig stock. And that was the last year that it was done here, because it strayed a little bit from the original intention of this whole process. The Mangalitsa pig is more than just raising a pig. It's how you feed it, how you house it, how you treat it, the environment that it's in, and then how it's harvested, how it's slaughtered. All right. Can they turn that down in there a little bit? So we feel that it's imperative that the animals are slaughtered on the farm. right? Because when you think about it, the moment that the animal is down, and we actually use a rifle, um, they're going from standing there just waiting for a piece of bread to lights are out. I mean, it's very, very instantaneous for them. If we were to trailer that animal up, have to kind of push it around and worry it a little bit to get it into a trailer and then take it someplace, it may have to stay overnight until the next day, be handled by people that it doesn't know. There's a tremendous amount of stress. And what that does is that initiates a fight or flight situation in the animal's psyche. And they want to get away. They want to go someplace else. They want to go home and they're scared. And if an animal dies in that state, you don't have as good of a product. There's going to be a lot of adrenaline in the meat, and you just don't want that. All right. So, because this was the 9th year that we've done this, and we do anyone can farm classes on other farms as well, we've done this a bunch of times now, and you kind of know what's coming as an instructor or proctor. We know what's coming. We know what the next step is. We know what people are going to ask. We know where people are going to have problems. So I was in a unique position this time. We had a friend staying here too, staying right in the house here. And we were sitting up yakking about who was in the class and why they were probably in the class and things like that. And I got to thinking that I could assess why people had come to the class by the questions that they were asking and how involved they wanted to be, and just my gut feeling of being around them and the type of person they were. We had one guy that was a chef, and it definitely was apparent. I don't think he was aspiring to be a butcher, but I think that he would like to widen his horizons and understand the process. And you can watch videos and stuff, but if you say, oh yeah, well, I actually did that, it's a completely different thing. Because when you watch videos, don't get me wrong, they're helpful, but the hands-on, the smell, the feel, just the sensation that's in the air when an animal has been killed, it's way different than watching a video on it. You're right there, the anticipation, right? So I got to thinking about why people would want to do this, and there were 5 different homesteads that were represented in the class, and I think my overall assessment was people are starting to figure out that in order to, and I say this, but in order to be a successful homesteader, you have to be willing to do what other people are not willing to do. All right. And raising animals, raising livestock, the choke point really is the processing of that animal into food. And a lot of times we're forced to trailer up animals, drive them a great distance. Kind of hard if you're a homesteader that has a job, maybe a day job or a night job or something like that. And it could be kind of difficult to do that. But if you have a weekend off, a Saturday off, Sunday off, whatever, and you can, process an animal on your time instead of somebody else's time, that could be really beneficial to your operation and make things work for you. When I use a USDA processor, that requires that I load the animals in a trailer the day before. My processor wants them there bright and early in the morning. So that means I'm traveling with the lights on. So that means all the lights on my trailer better be working. I got to go an hour and a half, drop the animals, and then an hour and a half back. So by the time I get home, I'm walking in here at lunchtime. So that's the most productive part of my day, and it's done. And then the return trip, when the animals are ready, it's again hour and a half there, pickup, which if I'm the only one in line could go smoothly, but if there's 2 3 people in front of me, it could take a while to get loaded, and then drive home. And then the processed animal you need to find a place to put it all in the freezer. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't do this. I'm just saying that this is eliminated when you can process your own, especially for the homesteader. Okay, it spreads the process out. We did the kill on a Friday. Those carcasses were laid out on our brand new hay wagon and wheeled into the shop. All the doors were closed to keep anybody from nibbling on it during the night. And then the next day we pulled them out. We did all the cuts, did everything we needed to do, started separating fat from lean. And if we needed to, we could have skipped 2 3 days and just left the pieces of carcass out and covered, because this time of year it's cold, and so it gives you some flexibility. I'm starting to notice that there's more of a sense of urgency amongst the homesteaders that I'm meeting, that they got to get this done now. They want to learn this stuff now. And I did a little polling on that, and the reasons for that were just personality types mostly. I don't think anybody says, well, I got to get this done because they're going to be closing the stores around me or anything like that. I didn't hear that. People are just wanting to get on with it, wanting to live an intentional lifestyle that involves self-sufficiency and good, clean food, enhancing their skills development. One of the people that was in the class was a mother of 4, and she, like us, sees small farming and homesteading as an excellent environment to bring children up in. Not only is it clean and challenging and all those things, but it's like a laboratory that you can bring those kids up in, because there's more for them to do than just clean your room and make your bed and mow the lawn and stuff. There's real kind of, not that those aren't meaningful, they are, but when they have to milk a cow, my 10-year-old son is milking our cow 2 or 3 days a week. I do it 2 days a week. My 14-year-old daughter does it two days a week or 3. So, I mean, these are real life things where they're having to deal with a big animal and the personality of that animal that changes day to day and month to month, and, having to deal with the equipment that you milk with and storing the milk. And then they go to the fridge, they're pulling that milk out and pouring a glass of milk with it. So, it's a meaningful lifestyle that is challenging. It's fun. It's kind of addictive because there's a buzz involved with it. You really enjoy it. I mean, I had a great time this weekend because here I am with a bunch of people that want to come and do what I do. So you can imagine it's fun because they have a lot of questions for you about how you do things. And then Sunday, when we were pretty much finished up, we loaded up the wagon with some straw and went for a little hay ride and visited all the different places on the farm. And got a little dog over there that's having a dream. And it was just a fun time. Had a fun time. Then we had a great meal, and everybody was out of here by about 5 o'clock that day. And it was a good time. We had people from all over. Had a guy from Martha's Vineyard out in Massachusetts. Oh, one of the things I wanted to bring up was we do talk about anyone can farm on the road. And this is where my wife and I, come to your farm. We bring as much equipment as we can bring in our little trailer. And we do your pigs for your class. So as the host farm, you would be doing the marketing as far as getting the amount of people that would be appropriate for your scenario, and then you set the price. We have a price that we have to get paid, and usually the farm can make more than we do on it, and that's good because that means that you'll want to do it again the next year. We'd like to promote this to a place where we're doing 5 or 6 of them a year on the road, as well as the one here. And what also needs to happen here is it's a stepping stone. I want people who take the class to eventually be to the point where they're going to give the class, right? So Randy Buchler, my friend from the UP, he was ready 2 years ago to give the class, but he's really ready now. We watched him this time. He's got it. He's got it. This time he was a little under the weather, so it was kind of good that we were there to walk through it with him, but he is ready to give the class. And this is just like anything else that we're doing. We're not trying to corner this and say, hey, we're the only people that can do this. I see Ducks and Clucks is out there now, and they've got a channel, actually a channel where they're walking you through their farm and some of the stuff that they're doing. Good on you. There needs to be more and more and more of this, to where homesteading is just something that it's an American cultural thing. And I think we're going that way. I mean, agriculture is kind of ebbs and flows. I think we hit the pinnacle of industrial agriculture, and everybody's, or a lot of people are looking at it saying, hey, wait a minute, and I'm going to do my own. So now industrial ag is not doing quite as well. And there's a lot of people that are saying, I'm going to do my own and I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to, I think we were all chasing, dollars there for about 20 or 30 years. Like, I want to be in a cubicle and I want to just work on a computer. I don't want to get my hands dirty. We found out that everything that comes with that is not good. And now nobody wants to be in a cubicle and have soft hands. Everybody wants to be out working and exercising their bodies and, keeping things going. I certainly do. I think this is a very good lifestyle. I would not trade it. Honestly, I would not trade it for anything right now. There were times when I was looking at like, well, this is just a stopping over point, but I really want to be a lobster fisherman. Well, I don't really feel that way anymore, because the further I get into this, it's sort of like climbing a mountain that's really high. The further you get up and the more you can see through the clouds, you see how much higher it is and how much farther there is to go. And I'm really glad, just a side note here, I'm really glad that we wound up out of commercial farming and into more of homesteading. I would say that there is less, what Joel Salatin's dad would say, slippage. There's less slippage because we can downsize the operation and hone what we're doing to make it a much sharper edge and do a better job with what we're doing. It doesn't mean that you can't generate dollars off of your homestead. You can. You're just not going to be a commercial guy that's selling to restaurants and retail stores and farmers markets, because that requires that you partner with the state, and that puts you in a totally different class, and you wind up competing with the really, really big guys. And so that's your death nail right there, because you cannot produce 59 cent a pound pasture poultry. You just can't do it. So you're going to have to be at a different place, a different price structure. And usually that means if you raise chicken and you got to have $4 um, to make to break even, let's say, or 3 to break even, a store has to mark it up once you sell it to them. So if they have to mark it up to 4, who's going to buy that, at the store? So there isn't as much gravy, I would say. There isn't as much, I don't know what you call it, as much profit margin um, in that model as there is with the direct sales, or the CSA model. Sometimes people call it. CSA is community supported agriculture. And that is where you, as the farmer or the producer, is selling directly to your customer. And it's a constitutional sale. It's from one citizen to another. And there needs to be no oversight by a third party, AKA government, in there. So if you can sell directly to a person, you can keep your prices at a place where you can still make a profit, and your customers are going to feel as though, hey, they're getting a good product at a good price. So anyway, the class was phenomenal. We will not be doing any more classes this year. If there are any requests, they will have to be next year, and we're going to start filling up the calendar pretty quick here. So if you want us to come and do an Anyone Can Farm on the road at your place, you're going to have to contact us, and we're going to have a little talk about it. It can go well. I would prefer if these are people who are students that have already come to the class, because then you're going to have an idea of really what we need. Having not been to the class, you won't know all the things that we need, the different facilities and stuff. And we can tell you, but there's a certain flow that's required, and, feeding facilities and all that stuff. So if you are interested in that, let us know, and we can hook it up for next year. But we will not be doing any more this year because we're coming up on heavy duty processing in the shop with turkeys, and I have to get several pigs out, and then we have our beef to do. So we're pretty maxed out. Okay, I'm feeling really good today. Here it is, hump day. We had about 3 or 4 inches of snow today. It started, and it got me outside and got me to thinking, whoa, winter's coming. And then all of a sudden I realized, hey, it's 32 degrees, and it was 25 last night. So there's a lot of frozen water around here. I had to get my water shut off. I had to winterize the pool, which I should have done about 2 months ago. But I pulled the filter off and brought it inside. Nothing happened. And things are good. I'm in the house now, and fireside chat going on. My hearth is done. I have lots of wood cut. I have my wife by my side here. I have a cup of tea, and I am ready to go. I have several questions that people have asked, and one was just recently. So I think I'll start in on that. If you're gonna ask questions, we request that you put them in all caps so we know they're questions. Also, from here forward, I want to change this forum a little bit to include things that are more pertinent to what my wife teaches, and that is about human health. I have a tendency to talk about system health and farm health and animal health, but I saw this weekend, she swung it right around to, okay, we're killing this pig. We're going to get a lot of fat off this pig. It's good fat, and here's why. It's good because it's compatible with the human body. If I was going to use the fat to grease machinery, then I might want to feed the pigs X, but where I'm using it to grease my knees and replace my brain cells, because that's mostly fat, I want to feed the pig this way. So it's starting to seem apparent here that the overall holistic picture that we're looking at is we're homesteading because we need to support human health, right? Our health, our family. So that's why we're doing it. So Jill is training to be an Ayurvedic um, practitioner. She's occupational therapist by trade, but she's also one of these people that can go out with two bent welding rods and find water and tell you how deep it is. She's one of those people. She's one of those people that can tell you, oh, you need to eat this weed, right? And what I think she has going for her is she's not just passing on to you stuff that comes out of some books that she's read or somebody she watches on the internet or anything like that. She's coming to you from a point of view as somebody who's immersed in the lifestyle because it's really the way she lives. She really does do the things that she talks about. She really does feed me things in the morning that I wasn't real too happy about at first, but I'm pretty happy about it now because I think my health was kind of slipping a little bit because I was losing my edge in a lot of ways, and it's coming back the other way. And I know now that I don't want to drink coffee this time of night, where before I would drink coffee right before I went to bed. And now well, that's me. Anyway, I've she's really helped me out a lot with honing my health. It was good. I mean, I don't have any health issues or anything like that. And since I got out of the service, I've only been to see a doctor once when I broke my leg, I think. And another time when I had to be reevaluated and they for VA, Veterans Administration, and they said, what medications are you on? And I said, I'm not on anything. You sure? No. Have you been? No. Nothing. Nothing. I don't take anything. So anyway, I want to open it up to questions about your health as it pertains to your homestead as well. So think about that. And some of the major things are, the high points are, stress, eating habits, weight gain, weight loss, allergies. We've dealt with that here. The list goes on, and I'm sure a lot of those will come up. And I'm thinking that this forum is really important because you may hear about something that you didn't think about, and then all of a sudden, hey, I'd like to find out more about that because you don't know what you don't know, and I know we're in the age of a ton of information to the point where there's too much information, so you have to pick and choose. That's one of her things is less information, less input into the brain. So anyway, let me get rolling here because we're running out of time. I'm yakking a lot. Wow, 28 minutes. Got a lot on my mind. A lot of good things though. But the first question I had was just recently, and a really good friend asked me about this was, I've got all these carrots and they're beautiful carrots. How do I preserve them, right, for use all the way through the winter and into the spring, and even longer than that if you have enough? We grew a lot of carrots this year, and they're beautiful. They're nice and long and fat, and you can almost see through them. I mean, they're just, I'm going to eat one after I get done with this. I'm just going to have to go out to the garden and pull one. The way you preserve those is it'd be nice if you could leave them where they are, but we can't because then our dogs will dig them up, right? So what we have to do is dig them all up and then make a trench, a V trench, maybe about a foot deep. and lay them all in there. And then cover them with dirt, same dirt that you took out of the trench. So you'll have a whole bunch of carrots in there. And then put straw over that and then dirt over that. And so you're going to have a really nice mound. And then do something to keep your animals away from there, your dogs. Our dogs, if they know we buried something, they're going to want to find it and see what it was. Well, we had puppies last year too. I don't think the older dogs will do it. And then you just work from one end. When you need carrots, go out and get 10 of them or so and bring them in, put them in the fridge, wherever you keep them, in the crisper or wherever, and use them as you need them. So that works really well. We've actually just left them in the ground. We've done that with potatoes too. But that method, that trench, that deep trench, you can do that with potatoes. Any root crop you can do that with. And that way you don't have to take up valuable space, maybe in your root cellar. And really, when you bring them in and you get them out of the dirt, they start to lose stuff. When a carrot has fully developed and the top kind of splits over and falls, it'll maintain that all winter long if it's left in the dirt. And we've actually going through the garden in the spring when we're getting it ready, and you find a nice carrot in there, and it's great. You just lovely thing. Okay. Are there any other questions? We may go a little long tonight.
Did you talk about preserving them?
Carrots?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just did.
Okay. I was writing some other stuff and I missed it. Yeah, I've got. Well, I guess I'll do these in order. Brittany from Minnesota. You've talked to her before. She wants to know what would be an overall good feed for all the animals on the farm. She has pigs, chickens, and goats. What she'd like to do is get a gravity box, fill it with feed for everyone so that she can save money through the winter.
Overall feed for pigs, chickens, and goats. Pigs, chickens, overall. Well, I don't know if one would do it, because you got to consider health of the animals. So I don't know if one's going to do it. I think one could really help. And this time of the year, you can get sugar beets, because everybody will eat those. And another thing that would work too would be rye. If you bought rye or barley, rye or barley or both, or they make this thing at the co-op. It's called a scratch. And they mix a lot of different small grains and a little bit of corn in there. And a lot of the grains that they'll use are what they call the thins or the cracked grains. And so a lot of times you can get it pretty darn cheap. But yeah, that's right off the top of my head. That's what I would think would work if you want to do one thing. And carrots too. They grow a lot of carrots around here for deer feed, and they're cheap. I don't know. I don't like that idea. I think I would keep my options open. I wouldn't say I'm just going to feed one feed. I'd say, well, what can I find a lot of and get it inexpensively? And then, oh, look at this. I found this. And then, oh, I found this. And if you start looking around, we're big advocates of scrounging, to where you're always on the lookout for something. And generally you can find it. They have this Facebook app now where you can just go through things that people are selling that live around you. It's incredible, the stuff that's out there for very little dollars, and it's just really a good thing. You kind of got to get over that thing of, well, I got to buy everything new. That sure is dumb. So get over that, because buying used cars, used trucks is the way to go. If you buy new ones, you get shellacked on them. So if you buy beaters, it's much better way to go. We bought a fridge yesterday for $350. At the store, they're 1,400. This one's 2 years old. Only problem was we couldn't get it through the doorway. It was 36 inches wide, 33 inches wide, and the doorway was 33 inches wide. Made it through with just we had to put some Mangalitsa fat on the side of it to get it through. But we got it in. All right, next question.
Yeah, the scratch feed.
Scratch feeds.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Okay. Jill agrees.
And then
That's a great idea.
scrounge, whatever. Well, I'd been thinking about it, and I hadn't even thought about that one, but that's a good one for everyone.
All right.
Nate, how can I get my Mangalitsas to stop going through the electric fence? They have no respect for it. He's got a 14 gauge wire and a 12 volt fencer.
Hmm. Have you, Nate, have you tested that fence to make sure it's working? That would be my question, because I've seen that, but generally they go through it once or twice, but it hits them hard, and then they are a little slower to go through it the next time. The way we fence is we put up a 39-inch woven wire fence. It's called Red Brand. You can get it at Tractor Supply or Farm and Fleet. It's about $150 for 330 feet. And we put that up, and then on the inside of that, 1 foot in and 1 foot up, we put a 14 gauge wire. And then I charge it with the hottest fencer I can find. If I could find a fencer that would literally knock them off their feet, I would use it, because you're protecting them by keeping them in. They're all going to get shocked at least once. And then after that, a lot of them never get shocked again because they never want to experience that again. So I'm wondering if your fencer is working. So what you're probably going to want to do, where does Nate live? Do you remember?
I want to say Southern Michigan, but maybe he can put it in the chat.
All right, well, it doesn't matter. If it's dry where you live, then you need to put down more ground rods and try to put them someplace where it's kind of wet, kind of moist. If you can put them, attach your ground wire on a water pipe, a steel water pipe that runs a long distance, that would be really good. The other thing that you can do is wet down the ground there and get out there, make sure you have a pair of shorts on and you just in your bare feet, kneel down and then touch that fence to see if it's working. And then let us know if the fence was working. Get back to us. If you didn't get a shock, then it's not working. I bet you it's not working, because pigs really do respond very well to electric fence.
Yeah, took my shoes off and everything to test it.
You did, huh?
He says South MA.
Southern Mass. Oh, wow. Another guy from Mass. We had a guy out here from Martha's Vineyard.
From where?
Martha's Vineyard. I'm from Mass too. I'm from Shrewsbury. So I was talking with this guy from Martha's Vineyard, and my accent came back with a vengeance. I'm going to turn this wood stove down a little bit. Stand by. Oh, it's like 20 degrees outside, and it's just too darn hot in the house. That's rough. Okay. Next question. Oh, Nate, what sometimes you have to do, especially if they're pigs that were not trained to electric, like I start mine really young, so they learn really early and it imprints in their mind. What you may have to do is put a training fence out. So you just put a short fence right through the middle of your paddock. When they hit it going one way and then they want to come back the other way, they'll hit it. and it'll train them. But it sounds like you don't have any woven wire or any hog panel or anything. And I think you need that. I mean, I've even done it myself where I've just had wire and the wire gets defeated because they throw stuff up over it or a branch falls over it or something can happen, especially when you're gone. That's when it will happen. It happened to us. I had pigs on the garden and there was about 40 of them and they were just little fellers, probably about this big. And we left to go to a museum. When we get back,
All right, Brittany, how much seems like a fair price to sell meat for? Saw someone selling for $10 a pound, so a 7.5 pound ham is 75, and that seemed crazy to her.
yeah, it's crazy to me too. Well,
Depends
Henry
on the-
Ford wanted to pay people enough that they could buy the cars that they were building. And it made a lot of sense. So, me, when I look at the price of something and I say, there's no way I would pay that, then why should somebody else pay it? Right. So, I know a lot of the Mangalitsa people are like, oh, $6 a pound, easy. Well, around here, I can't get that. I would never get that.
Well,
We sell
it
for,
depends on if she's talking $10 a cut or $10 for like a half a hanging hog.
yeah, certain cuts are going to be more, and then processed meat that is, say, let's say cured meat will be more. I think you have to price things to sell. It depends where you live. Around here, people will not pay that kind of price for it. Or not everybody. I do really well on my pigs and I sell them. What do we sell them for if we butcher them? And I sell them. What do we sell them for if we butcher them? 375.
Yeah,
Yeah, 375 a pound.
hanging weight.
Well,
Yeah.
it's not really hanging weight because it's actually live weight because we shoot them and we weigh them and then we process them, and we charge 375 for that weight. Now, a hanging weight is usually no head, no hide, no hoofs, no guts, no blood, no hair. So of course, if it doesn't have a hide on, it's not going to have the hair. So your carcass weight goes way down, and usually your butcher will charge you somewhere around 50 cents a pound for the hanging weight. So if you're going to use a butcher, you're going to go by the hanging weight. That's considerably less than live weight. So what I go with the live weight because I'm processing them right here. So I hope that helps. I think that you hit a place where you find out what people will pay, and that's where you're going to want to stay. And I know that Mangalitsa, a lot of people that got into Mangalitsa were kind of sold this notion that it was a silver bullet and they would have people beating their door down for the product. I don't know as that's happened. It hasn't happened to me. You have to work for your money for sure. And, especially if you're paying for commercial feed, your profit margin is going to be a lot less. If you are good at scrounging, then your profit margin goes way up. And that's my specialty. So when my pigs leave here, as far as feed goes into them, I have very little into them because I cut my own hay and I do a bread contract with a local company. So it's a disposal contract actually. So I have quite a bit of feed, and that's something you can look into around where you live. Look for big bakeries, breweries, distilleries, stores, that have big produce sections. See if you can get stuff coming out the back. You do some looking around. Big commercial farms that like the cherry farms up north of us, they always have a bunch of stuff. The squeezings from Wineries are always available. Let's see. East of me, you can get truckloads of beet pulp. So they squeeze the beets down and take the juice out of them, and then the pulp they just have to get rid of. Excellent feed for pigs. I don't need it, so I don't get it, but it's there if people want it. Did I get the question?
I think
Price?
so.
I think you're looking for a dollar number. I don't think I can give you. I can just tell you what I do.
Yeah, because the dollar really depends on,
The neighborhood that you live in.
yeah, the people you're selling to, what you're selling, and you know, you might be able to move a ham steak at a certain cost where you wouldn't sell a whole ham for that. So
That's true.
depends on what you're doing.
Yeah, come to the class and you can see the different cuts, and then you'll know when you look at a half a hog laying out, okay, where's the bacon come from? Where do the hams come from? Where do the chops come from? When we did the class this time, Sunday morning, we started off, and I had all the products that we produced, and I questioned the students. I said, "Here's a pork chop. Can you do this now?" And they're like, "Yeah, I can do this now." But before, a lot of people didn't really know, where does the bacon come from on a pig? Where does the pork chops come from? What is a jowl? But after you've handled all these parts and separated them off the carcasses, you have a pretty good idea where it came from. Plus, nowadays, everybody's taking pictures of everything. Next question, please.
Yep. Jeremy, yeah, he's active duty Air Force right now.
Okay.
Did you notice your health improve after you retired? Did your stress levels go down significantly? How was the transition for you, and how did you do you recommend going full time?
Full-time fireman.
Yeah.
Stress levels. That's a loaded question. You can bring the stress with you. I don't recommend it. I think you should leave it. Leave it with the Air Force. Let them deal with it. I don't recommend going full-time. I did, but I'm not recommending it, if that makes any sense. I recommend that you get a job when you get out and move where you want to go. Maybe you're going home or something, and then start looking around for property, and then start to assess what the needs are there. Like, what would be your niche if you started a farming operation there? But to get out of the Air Force, take up a piece of land with a bunch of kids and a wife, and then jump into commercial farming, that's a steep curve. Because I'm here to tell you, at least where I lived, there was nobody to help. Absolutely nobody. We were on our own. We didn't think it was going to be that way. We thought there was going to be, like, I didn't even know how to run a hay bind. I'd never baled hay in my life. I got here, and the tractor that was here, it started. I couldn't believe it. I didn't know anything about it. I had to assimilate myself to all of this stuff, the lifestyle and everything, and all the while trying to figure out, what am I going to do? Who's going to buy what I produce? We got involved with Small Farms Conference, and that's where I met Joel Salatin for the first time. And then I met him. He didn't meet me. He didn't know I was there. But he was the keynote speaker, and we bought one of his books. And that's where it began for us. The book that I read first was $25,000 on, it was the pasture poultry book. Do you remember the title? Make 25,000 on 5 acres or something.
I don't remember.
I don't
Pastured
remember.
Poultry Profits, that one?
Yeah, Pastured Poultry Profits. That's what it was. And excellent book. And because what you're going to need to do coming out of the Air Force, you're mission orientated. But when you get out, you're going to have the mission defined for you. And you're the one that's got to determine the mission too, as well as execute the mission and be the supervisor and be the grunt and, deal with the messes and all that stuff. So it's going to all be on you. What I started doing was getting up, going out. I made a makeshift desk, and then I would assign myself things during the day. And it was pretty good at first. How did my health change? I lost a bunch of weight right off the bat, but then I put it back on. But that was probably about 10 years after that, because my max when I was in the service was 220, and then I went all the way up to 260, and now I'm back down to 240. So I'm still 20 over my max in the Air Force, but I'm almost 60, so I'm okay.
15 years old.
Yeah. Or I'm 15 or whatever. And I'm decreasing now because I'm getting fed by this one over here in the morning, and she's feeding me weeds. And but it's good, I'm getting my edge back because I was really in good health when I was in the service. So was that all the question? What do I recommend you do? Keep coming here, keep listening, keep thinking, reading. We make a bunch of videos on our YouTube channel. You can watch those. You'll know a lot of, you'll understand me because you did 20 years of it yourself. And then listen to people who know. And I think we should probably talk. Why don't you call me on the phone? Because there's certain things that I want to tell you about the civilian community that really differs from the military community. But I am trying to bring to this forum what I would bring to people that work for me in the military. I don't want them to get hurt. I want them to be successful. I want them to be able to backfill. Okay, we reconnected. While we were briefly off, Jill told me that you're stationed at Scott. Never been there. Don't know much about Scott. That you'd read Joel Salatin's stuff. That's a big edge right there. The guy's got some real wisdom as far as this goes. Yeah, we probably should talk. The best way to do this is just get a hold of me sometime, and we'll talk, and I can kind of share a few things with you offline. Is that it? Did I answer all of Scott's stuff? Is that it? Did I answer all of Scott's stuff?
Or Jeremy?
Jeremy's stuff.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, other than like I told him, you guys need to have just a good long cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Nate wanted to know if male mangas grow faster than females.
Yeah, they do. If they're not cut. If they're not castrated, they do. The boars are going to be bigger than the sows. Boars are going to be bigger than the sows. But once you cut them, they seem to maintain about the same body definition. We've seen it where we've had a boar. I don't do this anymore, and I'm not going to recommend this to you. But we had a boar. I don't do this anymore, and I'm not going to recommend this to you. But we had a boar that was a big guy, and from experience, we know that you cannot butcher a boar. I don't care what you hear on the internet. It's not true. It's just not true. They say that there's these kits that you can test the back fat and fry it up. If you've done it enough times, you'll know that once a boar, always a boar. Once they've been sexually active, they're going to have that taint smell to them. A lot of people don't know what that taint smell is, so they miss it. But if you're butchering a lot of animals and you come across it enough, you know it when you smell it. And so we decided that we were going to castrate this boar. We were going to wait 3 months to process him. We did. He was really stringy and really gristly. He would have made a good sausage boar, but he did not have the taint smell. So I've heard people say that, well, Mangalitsas don't stink. That's not true. Not true. So you're gonna want to castrate them, but no, they grow about the same rate once the males are castrated, and the males don't grow, twice as much or anything. They actually have a different body definition when they're not cut, so they look different. They have a dorsal hump on them, and they're way more athletic looking, way more cut than the females. Females have a tendency to get round like a big pumpkin seed and kind of chuffy. Question?
Knife sharpening?
Hmm?
Knife sharpening?
Knife sharpening, yes.
Do you need a
Rachel
knife?
Jamerson. She asked me about knife sharpening. I got a knife. And, there's a lot of ways to do it, and people did chime in with a lot of things that I haven't tried. This is just how my grandfather showed me how to sharpen a knife when I was a little kid. And he showed me on this. This is from my parents' house, and I think it came from my grandparents' house. So this, the name on this is Norton, and it's made in Worcester, Massachusetts. So, and you can see it's kind of oily. It's got two sides to it. It's got a coarse side, which I don't use very much, and then it's got the finer side right there. You see it's taken down just a little bit, and the oil is to protect the stone. The oil will protect the tiny little pieces of the knife that come off when you are sharpening this. Now, what I do is you hold the knife at a 45-degree angle to the stone like that, and then you move it like this, like as if you're cutting into the stone in a circular motion. Okay, so let me show you. And then I come back, and the whole time I'm doing it, I can feel it. I can feel how much drag there is on this blade. And when I start, there's quite a bit of drag, and then it starts to get less and less and less. Then I'm going to turn it over, and I'm going to do the same thing. And when I get it to the point where I don't feel a whole lot of drag, then, which I'm not quite there yet, but just for demonstration purposes, I'm still going to be at 45 degrees. How does that look? And I'm going to draw this down like that. Okay? And I'm going to put a little bit of pressure on it. And I'm going to bring it back the other way. About 45 degrees. Okay. And different knives are different, obviously different hardness. This one is a case old time knife. Found this one, actually found it out in the lawn here after we had some sort of event. Somebody was sitting down, it must have fallen out of their pocket. It kicked around in the drawer for a long time, and then I took it out, and I've been carrying it ever since. So a few years I've had it. And once I go through and I stone this knife, it is sharp enough that literally I can shave hair off the back of my hand. I mean, this knife will get sharp. So I carry this knife, but I also carry a Leatherman. And a Leatherman is made out of stainless steel. And if you can get this sharp, it'll stay sharp a long time. So it comes from the company that makes it really sharp. I mean, dangerously sharp. But then once it gets dull, trying to get it sharp again, it takes a long time, and it's never quite as sharp as it was. But this one, I can get this as sharp as a razor. And then once I have it sharp on the stone, what you've actually done is you have made these microscopic fingers sticking up. If you were to look at this under a microscope, it looks like all these tiny fingers sticking up, and they're real close together, and they're all sticking straight out. And as you use the knife, the fingers start to go over like this, and they go over both ways, if you can picture that in your mind's eye. And that the knife is dull. As a matter of fact, it drags through things. If you're going to cut like an apple or something, it will kind of drag through it. It just won't. And then you use what's called a steel, a butcher's steel. And the action on this is like this. Same, 45 degrees on the steel. And then you draw it towards yourself and away. Actually, no, I don't go away. I think the books say that you should go away. You know, you always sharpen away from yourself, but it's much more natural for me to come towards myself. So when I'm butchering in the shop, cutting meat, I'll have one of these, and I usually can slide it down into my boot if I have muck boots on, or I have a pocket that I can slide it into. So you always have this at your hand. So as soon as you start getting a little dull, you're taking this out and you're cleaning up your blade, and things go a whole lot smoother. So that's how I sharpen knives. And I tell you what, there's gimmicks that come and go. This has been one of my prized possessions my entire life. All right, so this was at my parents' house, and I'm pretty sure it came from my grandparents. And when my parents sold the house when I was probably about 30, it came to me because my sisters didn't want it. And it's a prized possession. Now, I'll drop this on the concrete, and that thing could break. So I keep this thing very close because that could happen. Okay, that's sharpening knives. Last week, somebody was asking me about butchering chickens, and I didn't have any string handy. These are some shoelaces that I took out of a pair of boots that I'm just getting rid of today, finally. But the shoelaces were in great shape. So we were talking about doing chickens, and you need 2 lanyards. So you just make a loop like this, and then you put the loose end through the loop like that, and then come out like that. And then this will be like a cinch. So if I had this tied on to something up here, and I had a chicken's foot hanging from that, let's say I had 2 of them and I spread them, say 12 inches, then the chicken's legs would be spread. So you scald the chicken, 150-degree water, after you kill it, of course, after you cut the throat. And then you hang it on this lanyard. The lanyard, it should be hanging off a piece of pipe that is between 2 sawhorses, and then you're sitting on a white bucket upside down, and you just sit there and start pulling the feathers off. And if there's a person sitting across from you, they can be doing a chicken, and you can be doing a chicken, and you can have a good conversation about whatever. And it would take you 5 minutes per chicken to get it completely plucked. It's quick. And you get better at it as time goes by. Okay, knife sharpening, chicken plucking.
Yeah.
Do we have any other questions?
I do.
Okay.
I do. They're pouring in here.
Pouring in. Awesome.
Okay, Scott, Ducks and Clucks, wants to know when to breed his animals. They are of age and size, a year, and gilts are 380 pounds.
Wow.
Should I wait till December or January?
No, I do it right now. That would put you 114 days from when they mate and he gets her. 114 days. So your Scott is in Ohio.
No. I think Virginia.
Scott, I'm sorry. Yeah, Virginia. You don't have the weathers you don't have the winters that I wouldn't be afraid of your winters with that animal. I mean, because the winters here are severe, and if I needed pigs, I would do them now. So if you bred them right now, here it is, November,
December,
January,
Oh yeah,
February,
they'd farrow in March.
March. And then one thing you're going to learn when you're selling baby pigs is you're courageous because you actually have the breeding stock. But the people you're going to be selling to are I only want 2 little feeder pigs and I want them in April. I don't want to deal with freezing water. Right. So people are kind of particular, and you'll find out that people think that you're Walmart, and they'll come to your farm. Oh, I'm here to pick up a pig. Well, I don't have any now. You don't? So you have to do a little educating of your customers, and I'm assuming from what I'm seeing of your operation that you're interested in making some profit off your homestead, and you should. You absolutely should. We talked a little bit about economics of the Mangalitsa pig, and I just pulled numbers that worked for me. A Mangalitsa sow, you can get 5 years of successful breeding out of her. She's going to farrow twice a year, and that's with very little stress on her. She's going to give you, let's say, 8 babies each time. So 16 per year times 5, we said was 80. $100 a piece. That's kind of rule of thumb. Sometimes you're going to have to go 75. Sometimes you can get 150, but I just said $100 for rule of thumb for an 8-week-old wiener pig. So there's $8,000 in her life on wiener pigs. And then at 5 years, if her production does start to go downhill and you want to replace her, then she'll be pretty heavy by then. She'll be a 500-pounder. You can make 400 pounds of sausage out of her at, say, $7 a pound, especially if you can do it yourself, because then you have nothing into it. And then 400 times 7 would be another $2,700. You add that on to the 8, so you're up over 10 off of one sow. Now you got to take off your feed and your fencing and stuff. But after a while, and you know this already, Scott Burton, I saw where he took a road trip and came back with a truckload of pumpkins. And isn't that a good feeling to throw pumpkins out there to your pigs? But I think you're missing something. I didn't see your kids out there with baseball bats and machetes. So you're missing some of the fun involved. And you know what else you can do? You can make a whole bunch of pumpkin seeds. A lot of fun. I love them. And you're right. Your raw pumpkin seeds will deworm those animals. They will keep the worms at bay. Some worms didn't come from Venus. You don't want a vacuum. So, I mean, if you have a worm problem and you got to hit them with some sort of commercial wormer, like Safeguard, we have used in the past, you're going to set off an imbalance. And I mean, sometimes you got to do it, but I think you want to keep things in balance, and those pumpkin seeds will help you do that. So will biochar. Biochar will really help your ground too. You should look into that. Another question?
Nathan.
Nathan.
I'm conflicted on whether to buy into breeding rabbits for meat or go with chicken, which we're accustomed to eating. And then there's a second part after that.
Do both. And the conflict. I do both. You don't have to do a ton of one or a ton of the other. You can do some of both and start eating some rabbit and keep eating chicken. I mean, I'm never going to give up chicken. I really like chicken, and I do like rabbits, and I got big plans for rabbits coming this season. You'll see. You'll see. Did I answer that question? He's conflicted as to whether either or.
That's what his question is, kind of.
Yeah, I would do both.
If he was going to invest in one or the other, which would be a good investment.
Oh, well, okay. Then let's just talk extremes here. I don't know anybody that has a flock of laying chickens that will lay Cornish crosses, which are meat birds, or freedom rangers. I don't know anybody, and I don't, and I probably should. I think the reason why nobody does it is because you can get those chicks very inexpensively from the hatchery. So that's probably why nobody does that. But if all of a sudden things came loose and the mail wasn't running anymore, so you couldn't get your chicks in the mail, or your credit card didn't work anymore, so you couldn't buy them, you'd be out of chickens, and you'd probably be doubly strapped because you'd probably be feeding them chicken feed, and those Cornish cross chickens are actually pretty high speed, and they got to have a pretty high protein feed or they don't do very well. But now if you had rabbits and you started out with one rabbit, one male rabbit, and one female rabbit, well, you know what rabbits do. And they propagate. So you could spend very little money on getting rabbits going, and all of a sudden you'd have rabbits for sale, and you better learn how to process them. And what I'm doing right now is my breeding pairs are kind of off for the winter, because right now to maintain them, I have to buy those little pellets, and I don't like doing that. In the spring, when we breed them, and I have a bunch of little rabbits, because you can get a different group of rabbits from a doe every 45 days, and she can have 10. You can build your feeder rabbit supply very quickly. You want a bunch of feed just growing everywhere. And as we demonstrated this summer, it is everywhere. It's everywhere. It's weeds, it's grape leaves, it's everything that you can think of. I don't think we found anything that they wouldn't eat if we put it in there, and they maintain their weight and their health and all that stuff. So if we want to put a bunch of meat in cans, let's say rabbit meat in jars for the winter, or in the freezer, or maybe we can figure out other ways to preserve them, the summertime is the time to do it. And you can start out with one male and one female, or one male and 4 females, and you can have all the rabbits you want. So what would I focus on? I think that if times got tough, we would be eating a lot more rabbit than we would chicken, just because, if, let's say, there's some natural catastrophe, like I don't know, you name it, the grass will still grow. So my rabbits will still have something to eat. Okay. But the chickens won't necessarily eat off of the grass out there. And when I say grass, I mean forages, all the different things that they can eat, can and will eat. I mean, if you're into scrounging, wow, you can find just tons and tons of stuff that rabbits will eat. Tons of stuff. And you can grow tons of stuff too. Like we were talking earlier in the conversation about fodder beets or sugar beets. You can grow them. You can grow sugar beets, you can grow mangoes, you can grow uh, daikon radishes, and your rabbits will eat all that. So will you pigs. You know, I grow tons and tons of feed for my animals every year. So my main product going out the door is livestock, and I grow the feed for them instead of going to the co-op and buying feed for them. And that way I keep my costs way down. So I think that you could probably produce a rabbit for $0. I mean, a full grown, and there's a real good book that I'm reading right now, actually. I've read it twice before on raising rabbits. And if somebody could grab it off my
Yeah, hang
thing.
on.
Jill will grab it.
And I'll put a link to it in the show notes afterward.
Okay, Jill put a link. Excellent book on raising rabbits and all the fun things that you can do with them. I'm really psyched. But I got a great idea for a feeding pen this coming year. And, you know, I really like them because this time of the year, I brought them in from outside and now I have them in the barn. And I have them attached to the railings that keep the cows, you know, the cows can be in the barn, but they can't have free run. And so they're attached to the railings on the outside. And so when I'm in there milking, I can very easily look at the rabbits to see that they're doing okay. And they're just really nice animals. Here's the book. I've had this book a long time. I got it at probably 20 years ago when we first started doing it. Next question. You say you got a bunch of questions.
Yeah, the second part of his question was he was curious about breed suggestions of chickens for meat.
My favorite are Freedom Rangers, for sure. They take a little bit longer, but the meat is darker and the fat is orangey, and it's because they're out finding stuff to eat. They take a little bit longer to grow, probably, what would you say, twice as long?
No, they usually go, I usually figure
14
12
weeks?
weeks.
Okay, 12 weeks.
12, 14 weeks.
The Cornish cross is generally about 8 to 10. And
But they forage a lot more too.
yeah, the Rangers, Freedom Rangers will forage a lot more. So they're my favorite. Rabbits, I don't know if you asked that, but I have Flemish Giants and Silver Foxes. And the Silver Foxes, a buddy of mine had them and he didn't want them anymore, so he gave them to me. But the Flemish Giant, I would have picked those. But it just so happens I had a customer that had some extra ones. She sold them to me. But they're big. They're really big. So it kind of makes sense to have two breeds. If you read that book, a big breed and a small breed. It kind of makes sense. I won't go into it. You ought to get the book and read it though.
Yep, and I just put a link to that book in the chat.
Link in the description.
In the chat.
In the chat. Okay. There it is. I see it.
Okay. Brittany wondered how to deal with wood ticks going into winter.
Yeah, we don't have them here.
She's in Minnesota.
You're in Minnesota, huh? Way over there in Minnesota. Across the pond. Minnesota. I can't help you because we don't have them. We don't have wood ticks anyway. We have deer ticks. And it's like every place else I know of has them. But we don't seem, actually this weekend though, one of the girls that was in the class said to me, "What do you do about ticks here?" And I said, "We really don't have them." She says, "I just picked one off your dog's nose." But we just don't see them that much, you know, like 1 or 2 or 3 a year. I didn't have any this year, but I know there's some places where it's insane. I was back east in Massachusetts. I was walking at a place where I used to go when I was a kid, and I got one on me. I was just walking. I wasn't on the ground. So, yeah, I don't know what to tell you on that. I just don't. I'm not the expert on that.
All right, Scott had a question for you. Do I need to do lactation and gestation feed for the sow?
You know, some people are going to tell you yes. I'm going to tell you give her what she wants. When she is gestating, you know, she needs extra. I'm assuming that you're going to do the pastured thing. She's going to find what she needs. She's going to do a lot of digging. She's going to find stuff. You can give her things that you don't think are food, but if you go in the woods and you find a lot of rotten logs, you throw those in with your pigs and they will go crazy on them. Don't know why, but they just love to tear them apart and see what's in them. Branches, so there's a lot of bark. We give our pigs as much as they'll eat, and then if there's still some on the ground the next day, we'll wait until they get it cleaned up. I think one of the nice things about the heritage breeds is that they will self-regulate what they need. I don't think we've had any problems due to lack of nutrition in our animals, and you know, we really test them out. We like they're out in the wintertime, they're very austere conditions here in Michigan, and I give them hay, I give them straw, I give them bread, and then when we process chickens, they get heads and feet and guts. And you know, if we get a bunch of pumpkins, they get that. If they get a bunch of apples, they get that. I'm not counting calories, and I'm not looking at the food pyramid to make sure that they're okay. Because the way I think that I want to go in homesteading is I want to model my homestead when I can after the way things work in the natural world. And it's worked out for me as far as health goes and things like that. It's worked for me. So there you go. I'm not going to advocate putting them on a different feed, because I don't really want you going and buying commercial feed anyway, because if you do, they're going to talk you into hog chow or hog concentrate, and you'll know if you're feeding that because your area will stink. And what that is, you know, I've harp on this a lot, but hog concentrate is ground up hogs is what it is. It's protein. They call it raw protein. So it comes right out of all the big processing facilities. Anything that they can't put in a can of, you know, mystery meat, they pulverize it, dry it, make powder out of it, and then they put it in hog chow. And that's why places that feed lots of pigs in confinement, you can't breathe when you're near them. That's what makes that smell. So stay away from that. You're better off just feeding whole grains, whole corn if you have to. Problem you're going to run into there, especially with sows, is if you're feeding whole grains that were dried with glyphosate, and that's what they do. They go out and they spray the whole field down with glyphosate to kill it, and then it sits there in the sunlight, swaying in the breeze, and dries. But yet it's got that glyphosate, dried glyphosate, all over it. And then your sows eat that. They're going to have gut problems because the glyphosate is going to attack the flora that's in their guts. So that's why glyphosate is so bad. It's not that genetically modified crops are bad. It's that they genetically modify them so they can spray glyphosate on them. That's Roundup, if you don't know what that is. So when people get all wrapped around the axle about GMO crops, it's because the way that they're poisoned when it's applied to corn, the reason they do it is because they plant the corn, then the weeds come up, the weeds get up as high as the corn, then they'll go through and they'll spray it with glyphosate. The corn is genetically modified, so it does not die when it gets glyphosate on it, but everything else does. And we got to see firsthand this year genetically modified corn that was planted. They planted it in wet ground and it didn't perform very well, so they decided not to spray it with glyphosate because it's expensive. And the weeds overtook the corn. Never saw that happen before. You know, you see these manicured fields with nice straight corn. It looks beautiful, but the reason there's no weeds there is because they've sprayed glyphosate on it. So I don't like that stuff too much, and I try to stay away from it. Yeah.
Scott has one. We got one more
Ducks.
question. Yep. 'Cause
Okay.
It's 9:23. He can't. His mangoes eat the tops, but they won't eat the daikons and turnips.
They will as soon as it gets cold. Yeah. When it gets cold and you have a freeze, I'm going to assume you have some sort of freeze down there, then the sugars will go down to the roots and the things will kind of sweeten up and they'll eat it eventually. I've gotten called on the carpet. Actually, some woman called me on the carpet about that. Like she planted a lot of them, and as if I was making the whole thing up just to defeat her farm. And I had to say, just give it time. And then she did finally say that, yeah, it worked. They did finally go after them and eat them. But it's got to get cold first. Unless, you know, sometimes they'll just dig them up and eat them. They'll just dig them up and they'll just eat them, you know, sometimes. But
If
I
they're
bet
getting,
you,
if they're getting too much other food.
yeah, in your case, I see that you're giving them pumpkins. So why would they want to eat turnips when they get pumpkins? You know? So it's not that they don't like them. It's just that you're giving them Cheetos and they want to eat those instead of avocados, let's say.
Yep. All right, and that's all I have for questions, and it's 9:25.
9:25. We went a little long. Thanks a lot. I'm glad everybody came. And I think we're going to continue this because what we're seeing is approaching this consistently is it's bringing more people to the forum, and I'm starting to see things happen that lead me to believe that this is kind of spreading. I see Ducks and Clucks putting together their own website. Let's see who else is doing one that I saw. Anyway, I have a Facebook page. It's my name, Mark Baker, and you can go there and ask to come on, and I will definitely bring you on. If you want to go to the Anyone Can Farm tribe, and that's where it's an invitation only, but if you request to come in, we'll let you in. We put a little bit more sensitive things up there, and then that's a place where people like Scott has put up what he's doing so everybody else can see it. There's a guy that does a lot of woodwork and he puts that up. You know, you can just show off what you're doing. If you're not proud of what you're doing, I don't think you're embracing it as much as you can. And when you put something up that you're doing and people start to, you know, bite off on it, like, hey, that looks pretty good, and oh, have you tried this? It all works. If we were all sitting around here at this table drinking coffee and talking about the things that we're doing, the things that we want to do, oh, what are you doing? You know, we'd have a great time. So this is a community. I mean, it's like a community of anything else. We all have this weird gene that makes us want to put our hands in the dirt and be farmers, and we get a kick out of it. So, hey, let's come together and talk about it. Thanks for coming. We'll see you next week. And remember, anyone can farm.